My wife left me stranded in a foreign country with $40 and a note that said, "Guess you missed your flight, lol." Then she flew home alone and lied to our family for 11 days. I didn't beg her to fix it. I called a lawyer from the hotel Courtyard. When she saw what I filed, her face went white. My name isn't important. What is important is that I spent 4 years married to a woman I'll call Renata, and for most of those 4 years, I genuinely believed our relationship was fine. From the outside, it looked fine. We had a house. We went on vacations. We showed up to dinner parties together and laughed at the same jokes. I was 34, she was 32, and anyone who knew us would have described us as a solid couple. From the inside, it was a system. Renata generated chaos. I managed it. The management was rewarded with warmth, the warmth reset the cycle, and the cycle repeated so smoothly that I stopped noticing it was a cycle at all. The chaos came in different shapes. There was the time she threw my car keys into the lake behind her parents' house because I had been, in her words, too quiet at dinner. She laughed about it for weeks. I bought a replacement key for $340 and called it an accident when anyone asked. There was the time she posted a fake pregnancy announcement to my entire family's group chat, aunts, uncles, my mother, as a surprise prank for a Tuesday afternoon in March. I spent 3 hours making calls to walk it back. She said I had no sense of humor. And there was the time she told my boss, at a company holiday party, that we were relocating to another state. She had heard me mention Portland once and ran with it, and I spent the following Monday in damage control, assuring my manager that no, I was not planning to leave. And yes, I understood how that looked. Each time, I smoothed it over. Each time, Renata laughed and moved on before I had finished cleaning up. Each time, I told myself it was just how she was: spontaneous, unpredictable, a lot. I was good at managing chaos. I had been doing it so long that it had started to feel like a personality trait rather than a survival strategy. The phrase she used for me made that official. We were at a dinner party, 8 people around a table, good wine, the kind of evening that feels easy until it doesn't. Someone asked how we handled disagreements, the way people do when they're 2 glasses in and feeling philosophical. Renata smiled, reached over, patted my hand, and said, without hesitating for even half a second, "Oh, he's my emotional support doormat. He absorbs everything." Everyone laughed. I laughed last and quietest. She said it like it was a compliment, like it was a charming quirk of our dynamic and not a 4-year pattern with a name. I didn't correct her. I picked up my wine glass and I let the conversation move on. But that phrase didn't move on. It stayed exactly where she put it. And one day in Cancun, standing at an airline counter with my boarding pass going nowhere, I finally understood what she had meant. The Mexico trip was Renata's idea. She called it a second honeymoon, which I thought was a good sign. 4 days into it, I was starting to think maybe I had been wrong about the system. Maybe things were shifting. She seemed relaxed. I seemed relaxed. We had one argument about sunscreen and it resolved in under 10 minutes, which was a personal record. On day 4, I booked a solo snorkeling excursion. Renata hates the ocean, not the idea of it, just the actual physical reality of being in it, so we had agreed I would go alone, and we'd meet back at the hotel for dinner at 7. Simple plan. The kind of plan that requires exactly zero management. Before I left, I opened our shared airline app to double-check our return flight details. Force of habit, everything looked fine. 2 confirmed seats. Departing the following morning, my name and hers side by side. I locked my phone, put it in the hotel safe with my wallet, and went to go look at some fish. I had set up that shared booking account during our honeymoon, back when sharing everything felt like intimacy rather than access. I had never changed the password. Not once in 4 years. I don't know why. I suppose I believed she wouldn't. I was underwater for about 2 hours. No phone, no signal, no way for anyone to reach me. The reef was genuinely beautiful. I remember thinking it was the most peaceful 2 hours I'd had in recent memory, which should have told me something even then. I got back to the hotel at 5:30. The room was quiet in a specific way, the kind of quiet that means someone has recently left it. Her suitcase was gone. Her toiletries were gone. The bathroom counter was completely clear. On my pillow, held in place by the TV remote, was a sheet of hotel notepad paper, handwritten. 6 words and an emoji. "Guess you missed your flight. LOL, it's just a prank, babe." I read it twice. I set it down carefully on the nightstand. Then I picked up my phone and looked at 32 missed calls stacked one above the other, all from babe, all in the last 90 minutes. While I had been 50 feet underwater with no idea any of this was happening, she had packed every single thing she owned in that room. She had left the note on my pillow like a mint from housekeeping. And for the first time in 4 years, I did not reach for the phone. I called the airline from the hotel room. I sat on the edge of the bed where the note had been, and I worked through the automated menu until I reached a real person, and I explained the situation as plainly as I could. Someone had accessed my booking through the shared app and moved my confirmed seat to standby. I needed to know my options. The agent was polite and efficient. She confirmed that the modification had been made at 11:43 that morning, under the account linked to my booking. She confirmed the name on the account that requested the change. Then she told me I had 2 options. Pay $340 to rebook on the next available standby flight, departing tomorrow morning, no seat guarantee. Or wait for the next confirmed seat under my name, which was 11 days out, at no additional charge. I asked her to repeat the second option. She did. I sat with that for what felt like a long time but was probably 30 seconds. $340 to rush back to a house where someone had just stranded me in a foreign country as a joke. Or 11 days, at no cost. In a place I had barely seen because I had spent the last 4 days managing someone else's itinerary, moods, and strong opinions about the hotel's air conditioning settings. I booked the 11-day flight. The agent sounded mildly surprised. I thanked her, hung up, and opened my banking app. I had enough to be comfortable for 2 weeks if I was sensible. Then I did something I had not done in 4 years of marriage. I made a decision entirely for myself, with zero calculation about how it would land with anyone else. I checked out of the couple's resort $340 a night, ocean view, his and hers robes, the full performance, and found a small guest house in the city for $38 a night. Ceiling fan. Courtyard with a lime tree. A handwritten breakfast menu chalked on a board by the front door. My room had 1 window and a bed that was slightly too firm, and I slept 9 hours straight. That was about 3 more than I ever managed at home. There was one other guest that first week, a retired teacher from Oregon named Dale, 71 years old, traveling alone since his wife passed 2 years prior. He made coffee every morning in the courtyard and asked me nothing about why I was in Mexico by myself. We talked about birds. He knew a remarkable amount about birds. I noticed, somewhere around day 2, that I had not managed a single thing since landing at that guest house. No moods, no logistics, no chaos. Just coffee and birds and 9 hours of sleep. It was, I realized, aggressively ordinary. Contentedly, unremarkably, genuinely ordinary. I had been confusing her chaos for life. This a lime from the courtyard tree, a ceiling fan, a retired teacher who liked birds, this was also life. On my phone, the missed call counter kept climbing. 47 by the end of day 1. 59 by noon the next day. I put the phone face down on the nightstand and let it count whatever it needed to count. Renata's messages came in waves. I read all of them. I answered none of them. The first day was teasing. That was her default register when she wasn't getting the reaction she wanted, light, almost breezy, as if she were the audience to her own prank and not the person who had executed it. Lol, are you seriously not calling me back? Okay, this is funny, but also call me. Hello, the prank is over, you can come home now. I read those on the courtyard bench while Dale made coffee and told me about a blue-footed booby he had spotted near the coast. I put the phone back in my pocket. By day 2, the tone had shifted. The breezy quality was gone. The messages were shorter and the punctuation had started appearing, which with Renata was always a sign that something had changed. Why aren't you picking up? I don't understand what you're doing. This isn't funny anymore. I noted the shift. I noted that she had decided, somewhere between day 1 and day 2, that the prank was no longer the prank, that somehow, in her accounting, I was now the one doing something to her. I found that interesting. Day 3 brought anxiety. Real or performed, I couldn't tell from a distance, and I had stopped trying to calculate the difference. Are you okay? Like actually okay? I called the hotel and they said you checked out. Where are you staying? Please just let me know you're not dead. I was eating lunch at a street food stall when those came through: ceviche, fresh lime, a plastic stool at a folding table outside a place with no signage that a local woman at the guest house had pointed me toward. I ate the whole bowl before I responded to anything, which was to say I responded to nothing. Day 4 was when she found the language she had always kept in reserve for when nothing else was working. You're doing this to punish me, and that is actually abusive behavior. Silent treatment is a form of emotional manipulation. Look it up. I made a mistake, but what you're doing right now is so much worse. I read those twice. I took a breath. I thought about the word abusive applied to a man eating ceviche on a plastic stool in Mexico because his wife had stranded him there as a prank and then flown home. I thought about the 4 years of car keys in lakes, fake pregnancy announcements, and dinner parties where I had been introduced as an emotional support doormat to 8 people who laughed. I thought about all of that, and then I put my phone away and finished my coffee. Day 5 was the one that landed differently. I made a mistake. I know I did. Please just call me. I'm scared. No emoji. No punctuation games. Just that. I sat with it for a while. Not because it changed my calculation, it didn't, but because it was the first message in 5 days that sounded like a person rather than a system managing itself. I felt something adjacent to sympathy. I also felt something else. The specific exhaustion of having your empathy be the tool someone uses to walk things back to exactly the position they were in before. I knew how this worked. I had managed this particular sequence of chaos many times before. So I put the phone face down, ordered another coffee, and watched a pair of pigeons fight over a piece of tortilla on the sidewalk. It was, genuinely, a very pleasant afternoon. Day 8 started the same as the others. Coffee in the courtyard, Dale already on his second cup, a conversation about migratory patterns I only half followed. I had settled into a rhythm by then: breakfast, a walk, lunch somewhere I had never been, an afternoon with a book, or nothing at all. The missed call counter on my phone had reached 71 and appeared to have stopped climbing, which I noted without particular feeling. Then, within the space of about 2 hours, 3 different people sent me the same screenshot. My brother sent it first, then a coworker, then my mother, who adds 3 question marks to every text message regardless of context, sent it with 6. It was a Facebook post. Renata's account. Public. I will give her this, she wrote it well. The post was measured, worried in tone, carefully stripped of any detail that might complicate the picture she was painting. She said her husband had been unreachable in a foreign country for over a week. She said she was frightened. She said she didn't know what she had done wrong. She asked if anyone had heard from me. She used the word terrified twice. What she did not mention: the airline app. The modification made at 11:43 on day 4. The confirmed seat moved to standby under her account. The hotel notepad, the 6 words and the emoji, the 71 missed calls that she had placed and I had not answered. None of that was in the post. What was in the post was a wife who had no idea what had happened to her husband, reaching out to her community because she was scared and alone. 53 people had liked it. 11 had commented with variations of "thinking of you" and "please keep us updated." One of her college friends had written, "This is terrifying. I'm so sorry." I sat with my phone in the courtyard for a moment. The lime tree was doing what lime trees do. A pigeon was walking along the top of the far wall with great purpose and no apparent destination. I thought about Renata constructing that post, choosing each word, deciding what to leave out, hitting publish, and I felt something I had not expected to feel. I wasn't angry. I was just done. I opened my brother's message and typed back 3 things. The first was a screenshot of the airline's change confirmation email dated day 4, timestamped 11:43 a.m., listing the account holder who had requested the modification as Renata. The second was a photo of the hotel notepad, taken the evening I found it, the handwriting clear. "Guess you missed your flight. LOL, it's just a prank, babe." The third was a screenshot of my call log, 71 outgoing calls from her number over 8 days, 0 answered on my end. Under the 3 screenshots I typed, "I'm fine. I'll be home in 10 days. If anyone's actually worried, feel free to share these." I want to be clear about one thing. I did not ask my brother to post them publicly. I said feel free to share because I meant with the family members who were concerned. I did not specify. My brother, who has never once in his life done anything quietly, did not interpret it that way. He posted all 3 screenshots as a direct reply to Renata's Facebook post. No caption, no commentary. Just the airline record, the note, and the call log, sitting underneath her public statement about being terrified and having no idea what she had done wrong. I found out when my phone buzzed with a notification I hadn't turned off a comment on a post I hadn't known I'd been tagged in. I looked at the screen for a second. Then I set the phone down on the courtyard table, picked up my coffee, and watched the pigeon on the wall reach the end of its journey and fly away. My brother didn't need my help. Renata had already written everything anyone needed to know. He had just put it next to her words so people could compare. 2 days after my brother posted those screenshots, I made a video call from the guest house courtyard. Dale was not around that morning. The lime tree was. I sat in the plastic chair I had come to think of as mine, opened my laptop, and called a divorce attorney. Her name was Patricia Okafor. She had been recommended by a college friend of mine who had gone through a divorce 2 years prior and described her as someone who did not waste words. That description turned out to be accurate. She asked me to walk her through the situation. I did. She asked whether I had documentation. I told her I had the airline's change confirmation email with the account holder's name and timestamp. I had a photo of the handwritten note. I had a call log showing 71 outgoing calls and 0 answered. I had a text chain covering 8 days of messages ranging from teasing to threatening to a public Facebook post that omitted all relevant context. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That's actually very clean for a case like this." She told me to save everything original files, screenshots, timestamps intact. She told me not to post anything publicly and not to engage with the Facebook thread. She said she would have a separation agreement drafted and ready for when I landed. She asked if I had thought about what I wanted the outcome to be. I told her I had thought about very little else for the past 10 days. I knew what was coming when I got home. I had been in this marriage long enough to know exactly how Renata would run the counter-narrative. She would say the prank was harmless, and I had overreacted. She would say my silence was the real cruelty. She would say I had humiliated her publicly, conveniently skipping the part where she had written the post, omitted the facts, and collected sympathy from 53 people under false pretenses. She would say a lot of things, and she would say them loudly, and she would expect me to begin managing the chaos of her reaction the same way I had managed every other chaos for 4 years. I was not going to do that. After the call with Patricia, I opened the Notes app on my phone and started a list. Not of grievances, I had no interest in cataloging those, but of things I had not done in 4 years because Renata found them exhausting or boring or an inconvenience to her schedule. Hiking. Cooking actual meals instead of ordering in because she didn't like the smell of food being prepared. Going to a movie alone on a Wednesday afternoon simply because I wanted to. Calling my mother without it becoming a discussion about why I was calling my mother. The list was longer than I expected. I sat in the courtyard for a while after I finished it, looking at the lime tree, listening to the street noise beyond the wall. I had spent 4 years managing chaos and calling it a marriage. I had spent 11 days doing nothing of the sort and sleeping better than I had in recent memory. The math was not complicated. I booked my return flight for the following Thursday. Then I closed the Notes app, put my phone in my pocket, and went to find somewhere new to have lunch. I found out the comment section had turned when my phone buzzed with a notification at 7 in the morning, 2 days before my flight home. I was on my second coffee. The courtyard was quiet. Dale had checked out the day before he was heading to Belize, he said, because someone had told him about a particular species of heron and I had the lime tree entirely to myself. I opened the notification. It was a tag and a comment on Renata's post. I hadn't known I'd been tagged until that moment. I scrolled up to read from the beginning. The first few hours after my brother posted the 3 screenshots had gone more or less as expected. Some people went quiet. A few deleted their thinking of you comments. One person wrote "oh" and nothing else, which I thought covered it adequately. But it was the replies that came later, the ones from people who actually knew us, that changed the shape of the thread entirely. Renata's sister commented first. She wrote, carefully, that she loved her sister, but this didn't sound like the complete picture, and she thought people should probably wait before drawing conclusions. That comment got 14 likes within the hour. Then, a former coworker of mine, a woman named Joanna, who had been at the company holiday party where the Portland relocation story had been floated, wrote something longer. She said she had always kept quiet about certain things because it wasn't her place, but given what was now public, she felt it was fair to mention that she had personally witnessed Renata tell my boss we were moving states, had watched me spend the following week in damage control, and that this was not, in her experience, an isolated pattern. She named the car keys. She named the fake pregnancy announcement. She said she was sorry it had taken something this visible for her to say anything. That comment got 41 likes. Renata responded to her sister first, short, tight, the particular tone of someone trying to stay composed while composed is no longer a realistic option. She told Joanna she had no idea what she was talking about and suggested she stay out of situations that didn't concern her. She replied to 3 other commenters in quick succession, each response slightly sharper than the last. each one somehow making the situation worse in a way that only becomes possible when you are simultaneously guilty and convinced of your own victimhood. Then she posted a second update. It was longer than the first. She said the screenshots were being taken out of context. She said it had been a harmless prank between a husband and wife, and that her husband was blowing it up publicly to humiliate her. She used the phrase, "it's just a prank," 4 times in that post. The first time, people pushed back. The second time, fewer people responded. The third time, the comments were quieter. By the fourth time, no one was arguing with her anymore. They had simply stopped responding entirely. Someone in the thread posted the airline change record again, separately, with the timestamp highlighted. Someone else used the phrase international abandonment in a comment, and it got 27 likes. The thread kept moving without her. I read all of it from a rooftop cafe in the city, a glass of fresh juice on the table in front of me, the sounds of morning traffic below. I did not post a single word. I did not like a single comment. I finished my juice, paid the bill, and went for a walk. She had written 400 words in her second update about how none of this was her fault. The receipts were 11 words and a timestamp. I thought about that for a while. Then I stopped thinking about it and looked at the view instead, because the view was genuinely excellent. I landed on a Thursday morning. The flight was smooth. I took a taxi from the airport and watched the city go past the window and felt something I had not expected to feel coming home. Nothing much. Not dread. Not anger. Not the particular low-grade tension that had lived in my chest for 4 years every time I turned the key in the front door. Just nothing. Clean and flat and fine. Renata was in the living room when I walked in. She had clearly been there for some time. There was a glass of water on the coffee table and a stack of printed papers next to it, screenshots, I could see, organized into some kind of order. A prepared case. She had spent the time I was in the air, building a rebuttal. I set my suitcase by the door. I reached into my jacket pocket and I placed Patricia's separation agreement on top of her printed stack. She looked at it. She looked at me. I said 4 things. You changed my flight. You left a note that said prank. I spent 3 weeks thinking about what I want. This is what I want. Then I sat down in the armchair across from her, and I waited. She had 60 sentences. Maybe more. They came fast and then faster, about context, about overreaction, about how I had humiliated her, about how the silent treatment was its own form of cruelty, about how a real partner would have called, about how her mother had seen the thread, about how Joanna had no right, about how this was not who we were, about how we could fix this, about how I was being cold, about how she had made one mistake, about how it was just a prank. She said it twice. Standing in our living room, the same 6 words she had written on a piece of hotel notepad paper and left on my pillow like I was supposed to laugh. I let her finish. I did not interrupt once. When she stopped, I said nothing. I picked up the separation agreement from under her stack of papers, set it on the arm of the chair, and looked at it. She had 60 sentences. I had 4. I was done before she found her second paragraph. 3 months later, the divorce was moving through the system without much drama. Renata had contested one filing in the first few weeks. Her attorney sent a letter, Patricia responded, and then things went quiet on that front. I took that as confirmation that the receipts were as clean as Patricia had said they were. Renata's social media had gone quiet shortly after the second Facebook post. The thread eventually stopped moving on its own, the way threads do when there is nothing left to argue about. Several mutual friends had reached out to me privately in the weeks that followed, not to take sides, most of them said, but to mention, carefully, that they had had no idea. I told them I appreciated it. I meant it. I went back to the notes app list I had made in the guesthouse Courtyard, the one with the things I hadn't done in 4 years. I had added to it since I got home, and I had started working through it in no particular order. I had gone on 2 solo trips, one to a state park 3 hours north that I had been meaning to visit since before the marriage, one to Portland, which felt appropriate. I had cooked actual meals 4 nights a week. I had gone to a movie alone on a Wednesday afternoon simply because I wanted to. And I had sat in the middle of the row and put my jacket on the seat next to me and not managed a single thing for 2 hours. The list was about half checked off. I was in no hurry with the rest. I slept well. I ate when I was hungry. I called my mother on Tuesdays, and the calls lasted as long as they lasted, and nobody discussed them afterward. Dale sent me a postcard from Belize, a blue-footed booby on the front, 3 sentences on the back, a recommendation for a guest house near the coast. I kept it on the kitchen counter. Here is what I know now that I did not know 4 years ago. or 1 year ago, or even the morning I stood at gate 14B with a boarding pass that went nowhere. Being an emotional support doormat is not a personality trait. It is a choice. And the moment you understand that, you realize it is also a choice you can stop making. Renata wanted a scene. What she got instead was me figuring out I didn't need to give her one. That is the whole story. 11 days in Mexico, one separation agreement, and the quietest decision I ever made, not picking up the phone, turned out to be the loudest thing I ever said. If you have spent time in a house so full of chaos that you forgot what ordinary sounds like, drop a comment. I want to hear how you got out. And if you're still in it, I want you to know that ordinary is waiting for you on the other side. It is aggressively, unremarkably, genuinely worth it.